This is Jacqueline White. Today is July 30th, 2008, and I'm interviewing Beatrice Jones, and we're going to talk about her early life and her connection to the Hudsonville orphanage.
The home was moved to Pilot Point, Texas by a holiness group. They didn't have a church. It wasn't organized, and they moved it to Hudsonville for some reason in the late 1800s. I'd say maybe 1880 or something like that, and moved to Hudsonville. And this I picked up then in 1917 to 1927 of the town of Hudsonville. It's an old town at this time. Very prosperous town and well kept. The orphans' home was established in the 1800s by the independent holiness belief. No established church. They were sponsored the home some, but they were mostly self-supporting by farming, baling hay, making syrup, their own meal and flour. They also had hogs, chickens, cows, orchard, and garden. They worked very hard. At times there were 20 to 30 children, more girls than boys. Oscar Hudson was one of the first superintendents of the home. His brother, Whit Hudson, took his place later. No relation to the trustee Hudson brothers, Bob, Buford, and Shelby. The home disbanded in 1927. The orphans' home had a dynamo or generator for lights and also for the tabernacle and one street light. The town was located in the northeast Bannon County, but has since vanished, and all that remains is a cemetery.
So that's a history.
That's the history.
Yes. Well, tell me. Shall I move this for you?
Yes.
Yeah. Tell me how your family. How did you happen to come to Hudsonville? What happened? What were the circumstances?
Well, my parents lived in Boswell, Oklahoma, and my father worked for the railroad. He worked on the track, not on the train. He drove a hand car.
Okay.
And he also made a little truck. And they had 3 children. My mother had 3 children. And he farmed on this, and besides running the hand car and working on the track. And he was working in the field, and he had a heat stroke and died. And my mother was pregnant with a 4th child, and left her 3 children and one on the way. There was no Social Security and no welfare. And she had polio in one hand and had a crippled hand and couldn't work very good. So the railroad company allowed her to live, so they lived in a train house that belonged to the train.
To the railroad, yeah.
Railroad shack, they called them. And they let her live there until after I was born. She knew she could make a living for us, and she had been raised in Bannon County. She was originally from Bannon County, and so she knew about the orphans' home in Hudsonville, and she had friends there. Miss Willie Curtis was one of her girlhood friends. Her name was Willie. The lady's name was Willie, and she came to visit her, and she also said about putting us in the orphans' home. So come to find out, they would take the 2 older ones, but they wouldn't accept me because they didn't have a nursery, and I was 10 months old.
You were how old?
10 months.
10 months.
And they wouldn't accept me because they didn't have a nursery. So she left the older 2 in the home and went back to Boswell. That's where they lived, in Boswell. And in the meantime, my little brother died.
A 9-year-old?
A 9-year-old. They claimed he had a heart attack, but some of them said he got hurt and died that night. So anyway, it left my little sister. She was 7 years old in the home. And I also had a little sister that had polio between them, and my mother kept her. She couldn't put her because she had polio and her legs, she couldn't
crippled.
She's crippled, she couldn't walk. So she had the crippled baby and me left. And she didn't come back for the little boy's funeral, but in the summer, he died in the summer, and in the winter she came back to visit my sister that was in the home. And she was staying with her friend, Miss Willie Hudson Curtis. She was staying with Miss Willie Curtis. And so Miss Willie, it was Christmas time, and they was having a revival at the tabernacle. They had revivals in the summer, and they had revivals in the winter, in a big tabernacle. In the tabernacle, they didn't have a church house. They let down the side to shut it in.
Oh, okay.
And they had a big stove in the center. This was Christmas time, and it was having this revival. Well, Miss Curtis and them was going to the revival, and my mother and father lived about 3 miles out of Hudsonville. They were a young married couple. The adopted. They lived about 3 miles out of Hudsonville, and they were also coming to church in a wagon in the wintertime to this tabernacle with the let down
Sides.
Yeah. And anyway, it was on the night before Christmas Eve, and that was to be the last night of the revival. So Miss Curtis that day had got a phone call from her older children that was married and lived off that they were coming in for Christmas. And she told my mother, she says, Miss Langston, she said, I don't have room for all of you. She says, you'll have to find another place to go with you and the 2 babies for tonight because my children coming in. And Miss Curtis said, oh, I know a couple. They're a young married couple, and they don't have any children. They've been married for about 3 years, and so they're a real good Christian family. And their name's Maren and Florence McVay. And she said, they'd just be glad for you to come and stay with them. So anyway, they all came to church that night, and she asked for McVays if they would take. They said they'd be glad to. So they took me home with them. This was the night before Christmas Eve. So Christmas Eve, my mother got up and she said, now they just had Christmas one day. Christmas didn't go on all the year like it does now. I mean, you got up on Christmas Eve and you cooked for Christmas Day and that was it. But anyway, she told Mr. McVay, said, I need you to go to the store and get some stuff for me to cook for Christmas dinner. And in the meantime, my mother, Miss Langston, said, well, I need to wash for the babies. She said, they're about out of clothes and I need to wash. And so Mrs. McVay said, well, told her, I said, you go out and build a fire, draw the water, and get everything ready for her to wash. And then I want you to go to the store. So he did. He went out and got her everything set up, and she went out to wash and washed outside those days. You didn't wash in the house, and it was cold. So Miss McVay said, "I'll keep the babies while you wash in here, and you go ahead and do your washing." So she did. And so my mother came in from washing to warm her hands. It was very cold outside. And Ms. McVay was playing with me. I was 10 months old baby. And she said she thought I was the prettiest baby she nearly ever saw. She just really thought I was a beautiful baby. Mm-hmm. Had to have been to me to be as homely as I am now. They say a pretty baby makes an ugly grown person. So anyway, she said, why don't you give me this baby? People always, people say that today. Yeah. And she said, well, you can have her. She said it to your mother? She said it to Miss McVay, my mother. Yeah. Miss McVay asked my mother, Miss Langston, said, would you give me this baby? She says, yes, that's what I'm here for. Well, Miss McVay said, she said it almost took her breath. Said, you can't give this baby away. Said, you can't give the baby away. She said, yes. She said, if you don't take her, someone else will. Because I've got to find a home. I can't make a living for them. Said, I've got to find a home, and the orphan's home won't take her because they don't have a nursery. And says, if you don't take her, I'll find someone else. And Miss McVay said, you can't give this baby away. You just can't. And she said, yes, I am. So she said, well, it just scared her to death. She said, talk about labor pains. She said, I had labor pains thinking about this baby, Yeah. She said it just scared her, and so she said, well, she worried about her. She heard her husband coming in from the store. So she went out to meet him. She said, you know what that lady told me? She says, she's going to give this baby away. And says, we can't let her give this baby. We just can't. Not thinking if we take it, it'd be giving me away, She says, we can't let her give this baby away. And he said, well, I'll help. And so he went on and took his team out and came back to the house, and they had their lunch. And he asked her, he said, did you say you was going to give the baby away? She said, yes. He said, are you sure this is what? She said, yes. He said, would you make it legal? She said, yes, I'll make it legal. Well, this is Christmas Eve, and the lawyers is all closed. There's we can't go to the lawyer now. But says, we've got to talk to someone. Said, I want to talk to someone about this baby before we make up her mind. And there was a doctor in Carson, Texas. I don't know the doctor's name. They said, well, that's the closest person that I know that we could talk to. So he asked her, he said, can we take this baby to the doctor and have her examined and everything? She said, yes, you can take it. So they took me to the doctor, and he examined me. He said he couldn't find anything wrong, only I was undernourished. I wasn't sitting alone at 10 months old. And said the reason I hadn't been exercised, I had been kept set in a box and hadn't been exercised, and I couldn't sit alone. I was used to having a prop, all the time. So he said, she's not anything matter except she's undernourished. And he tried my brain. He said he'd give me a spoon to see what I do, and I tried to feed myself, of course, with a spoon. And he'd give me a book, and I wanted to look at the book. And he said he tried my brain every way they knew then, these days. And he tried my brain. He said he couldn't find anything wrong with my brain, that I was very active. And you were 10 months or a little older by now? 10 months. 10 months, yeah. 10 months. And they was worried because I wasn't crawling or sitting alone at that age. And he said, it's not anything, but she hasn't been exercised and she's undernourished. And said, put her on a rich formula and she'll come out of it. So they said, they decided they'd take it since they'd been married 3 years and didn't have any. They didn't think they would have. So they went back and talked to her, and she said yes, she'd be glad to make it legal. So the next day was Christmas Day, and then he said, well, we can't see a judge or a lawyer until the day after Christmas.
Yeah.
And Judge Hunt was an ex-judge, and he was still practicing law at Lamasco. And that was just from Hudsonville up to Lamasco, about 3 miles.
Okay.
So they take me to Judge Hunt, and he filled out all the papers, and they took Mrs. Willie Curtis went along, or with Miss Mary Haynes and Miss Nanny Graham all went along. They were all friends. Went along with them to the bottom. We came back to the judge, and we come to the bottom to put it on record, and they came up. And my mother, I've got the picture of the day that they took me in my book. And my mother left then for Boswell, Oklahoma. And I never saw her that I knew of again. But she did come back to our home and visit my sister that was in the home. And so my sister stayed in the home until she was 17, and the home disbanded. It went broke. They couldn't make a living anymore. Depression came, different things came, and they couldn't, and the crops failed. So that's when in 27, the home broke.
And what year was it your sister went in?
17. She
In
went in the year I was born.
1917. Okay.
That's the reason I started mine.
Yeah, it's 1970. I thought it was about that time, but I wasn't sure.
I started in 17, and the home disbanded in 27. So she stayed from 17 to 27.
So she was there 10 years.
She was there 10 years.
And did you have your sister? Did she stay in the area? You were able
No,
to.
she went when the home broke up. The Whit Hudsons moved to Clinton, Oklahoma. When the home broke up, they sold out, and they moved. He owned a little farm. The Whit Hudson, the superintendent, owned a little farm of his own, and he sold his. Now, he didn't own the orphans' home; it belonged to the other Hudsons and the trustees. As I said, that the trustees weren't any kin. The Hudson, the superintendent wasn't any kin to the trustee Hudsons. It just happened to be nameless. You can read. So he moved to Clinton, and she moved, and he carried another over hill.
I want to look at this if you'll let me borrow it. Could I borrow it?
I know, I've already got one out. One of the ladies, she took one.
Who? The other lady?
Yeah, she's got it.
She has a book?
Uh-huh.
Okay, because we'll have to I want to make a copy of it, can I, to put in our...
That's what she took. She's got the book.
And the map.
And the map.
Okay, because she didn't say anything about having the book.
Yeah, she's got the book.
Okay, so we can borrow the book from her and make copies. We'll do that then.
I can't.
Yeah.
I've got 2 or 3 alone today. I can't afford it.
Because I want to read it.
But anyway, and I figured that like I say, one of the first superintendents and the last superintendent weren't any kin to the Hudsons that Hudsonville was named there.
Oh, okay.
And they weren't any kin to those Hudsons. It just happened that they were Hudsons.
Huh, that's unusual, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Well, did you have a happy life? I assume you did with these people.
The McVay,
the
yeah.
McVays.
They went ahead. In 2.5 years, they had their first baby.
Oh, so you had a brother or sister?
They had 2 girls and 3 boys.
Oh my goodness.
And I was the oldest.
Yeah.
And when I was 6 years old, there was a lady that came up to our house, and they was in a new car, dressed up, and they came up there. We had to come up the drive. We had a long drive. We had to come up a long drive, and they came in a new car and everything. And kids used to, every time the door was open, you'd run out. And I ran out and jumped up on the running board of the car next to this lady. My little brother, he was 2.5 years younger than I was. And we went out there, and this lady, I thought she was so pretty. She was dressed, and he was dressed, and they was in a new car. I thought my papa acted kind of odd towards him, He wasn't very happy to see him, and I didn't know why, because he was a very kind gentleman, very well thought. And he said, well, you know how you got in here. You just go back the way you come. Well, I said, of course, they left. I said, Papa, who was that? He said, oh, that was just a man and woman and one little girl. And I said, and I said, where'd it come from? He said, Honey Grove. He didn't say another word. I never knew anything about it until about 10, 12 years ago. My cousin, Mary Faye Stoddard, she was a distant cousin, and she was getting up the family tree. And she said, she wrote me, and she said, Beatrice said, your mother married again in 6 years after she married again. And she married a man named Shirley in Honey Grove. And I said, oh.
That's who it was?
I was 6 years old, and that was in April. And she told me the year, I said, that was my mother and her new husband, and she had come back to try me get me back. And he said, no, she's our first one and we're going to keep her.
Yeah.
So you know you get that. So anyway, I didn't realize then until about 12 years ago that was my mother. But I remembered her, how she looked and everything. I thought she was so pretty. Put that on the wedding clothes. I'm sure she was. I remember her dress was pink. It was a pretty pink. And I thought she had her hat and gloves and just really dressed, you know. And he was dressed. And that's the last time that I ever saw her. But I didn't know then that that's who it was. But I did remember how she looked. But I can't picture a mother. I leaned against her shoulder. You know, cars had we call them running boards then.
Yeah.
And I stood there and I can't picture a mother not reaching out, automatically touching your child. But she didn't. She was very calm because I don't know where my daddy, what he would have said.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't happy to see her.
Wonder what happened to the other child. Did you ever find
Yes,
out
I knew.
one with polio?
After my mother left, and after she left me there, she was taken in washings to make a living for her and a crippled baby. And she had her laying on a pallet in front of the fireplace, and a spark flew out and burned her so bad that she died of pneumonia.
Oh, tragic.
So that's. And then after my mother married a man named Shirley, then she had 2 boys, and I never did hunt them up. I don't know.
Your sister?
My mother married again.
Oh, after she married, she had 2 more boys?
2 more boys.
Huh.
And I've never found them. I haven't really tried, but she and that husband died, and then his brother had to take those 2 boys and raise them, and she left. And that's the last I knew.
So you don't know what happened to her?
I don't know what happened, where she's buried or anything.
Buried or what?
Nothing.
Yeah. Sad story, isn't it? Yes. But there was a blessing in it. You were able to get a good Christian home, you said?
And
they loved you?
Yeah, they were very. They got me in church, and the first place they took me was to Gum Springs Baptist Church to show me off.
Uh-huh.
And so I went to Gum Springs Baptist Church for the first time they took me out here, other than Hudsonville. And then from there, we moved to Center Grove, just out on Lasco, and I lived there till I was 14, and they just had a one-teacher school, and I couldn't go to high school. So we moved to Lamasco, and I went to high school in Lamasco.
Okay.
And yes, they were very good to me. They had, like I say, they had a boy 2.5 years after I was 2.5 years old when he was born. Then they had a girl about 2.5 years after that. Then and she died at 11 months. That was their first girl. Then they had another boy in about 2.5 years, and he's still living. And then they had they had 3 boys and 2 girls. And I've got I got the middle boy and the young girl. She's 15 years. I was 15 years old when she lives between here in Denison.
Oh.
And so
you've been in Fannin County a lot of your life.
Since I was 10 months old.
Since you were what?
10 months old.
10 months. Oh, you have been here all your life.
She came over here when I was 10 months old.
Well, I was going to ask, where did you meet your husband, and when did you meet him?
Our folks knew each other. They lived in Lamasco, and our folks lived at Center Grove, which was just 2.5 miles out of Lamasco. And we went to Hudsonville, which was 2.5 miles the other side of Lamasco. And we went through it. And they knew each other all their life. They knew each other. My husband's family and my family knew each other.
Okay.
And so I grew up seeing them as kids playing, you know.
Uh-huh.
I didn't go to school with him or anything until I went to high school, and I went with some of his brothers. But we met, first time I remember, I met him when I was 13 years old, and it was kind of cute. It's all, I wrote it all out. It's a love story. And
well, I will read every word of it, but what was his name?
Clarence W. Jones. Call him Doug. Clarence W. Jones.
Clarence W. Jones.
Uh-huh. First page will tell you. Here it is.
Oh, Clarence Walden Jones. Doug, did you call him Doug or
Dougie?
Dougie?
Doug.
Doug.
Uh-huh. He didn't want to be called Dude either. You call him Dude, and he didn't like that. And that's right after they took me, and you see them all. I got looking like a little pig. They put me on this Eagle brand milk.
Eagle brand?
Eagle brand milk.
My goodness, I bet that did.
That fattened me up right quick. This is my great-grandparents. They're named Studdards.
Oh, my goodness.
So I came from the Studdards. They were my mother's family.
You've done some research.
Not really.
No? This is just all the stuff.
That's my husband and a group of his
Yeah.
friends.
Is this him sitting on the left?
He thought he was as old and big as the rest of them. I have a picture of all of my family, even my great-great-grandson. I have a great-great-grandson. I've got every one of my family in that book.
Is that right?
Mhm. Let me
This is
check
too
this out.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't want to look at it because I don't want to distract you from your story right now. Maybe I'll look at it when we're finished. But well, tell me about Bonham. When did you come to Bonham? After you were married, and was that something you did as a young woman?
Oh, we came to Bonham about every 2 weeks.
The
in
family,
a
the
wagon.
McVays, your
Yeah,
family.
Yeah.
And
We
what?
have business in town. He'd come to, of course, that's county seat, and we'd come to Bonham in a wagon, at 15 miles.
Wow.
And I said there's about 4 different roads out of Lamasco to Bonham. And he'd get tired going one road, he'd come another road, come another road. So and driving in a wagon, you're going so slow, you meet everyone on the road and everyone that lives on the road. So I knew everyone from Lamasco to Bonham. And then from everyone from Lamasco back to Hudsonville and Monkstown. We went back towards Monkstown a lot. And yeah, I started, and I'd come with my daddy to Bonham in a wagon a lot of times. Just boys wouldn't want to come; they was busy. They played, and they was always building or something, you know. And he'd let me ride. We'd get up early and start out early, ride to Bonham in a wagon. Take us about 3 hours. And when we get to Bonham now, I wasn't over 4 or 5 years old. Wasn't any cars, wasn't any traffic on the square. He'd say, "Now, Beatrice, look up at the clock on the courthouse."
The clock, yeah.
And he'd say, "You come back, make me here at a certain time." 4 or 5 years old. Well, I'd go round and around and around the square, and I'd go in every store. And my daddy was a mason, and he knew all the businessmen around Bonham was masons, and they knew me. And they was always, you know, talking to me and proud to see me, you know. And I'd spend a couple of hours going around the square and going through the courthouse. I loved to go through the courthouse. We wouldn't go all the way around. We'd go through the courthouse. And it was open all the time. You could go through it all the time.
Oh, really? So
Yeah.
if it was a hot day, you could go inside?
Oh,
or?
yeah, it was cool, and us kids playing there. It's
Yeah.
a big bottom floor. She's got them out of the floor. I drew them out of the floor of the courthouse in 1920.
Oh.
The way the floor was. It was beautiful. And another thing I wanted to tell you about Bonham, that in about 1920, they entered a contest, Bonham did, for the cleanest town in Texas, and they won the plaque. Bonham won a plaque for the cleanest little town in Texas. That's the way it read.
Well, how nice.
And it's probably in the library or somewhere. You can probably find a record of it.
Yeah. I'll have to see what we can find out about that. Tom Scott may know about it too, you know, down at the Museum of History.
So that's one thing. Bonham, it can be featured being the cleanest little town in Texas at one time.
Well, I can believe it. I love Bonham.
Yeah, but Bonham was a beautiful little town. It was well kept, and it was very busy. It was, you know, it's a very busy and very well kept town. Everything was.
It was really nice.
It was nice.
Well, tell me some of the businesses that were around the square that you remember as a little girl when you'd come into town. You said your dad would look at the clock and tell you that when to be back.
Here.
Meet me back here, and you'd go around. And what kind of stores did they have? What did you like to do when you went around?
Oh, they had the Woolworth and Ducaneries, and then they had the Englanders, Crawfords, Rissers, and they had the American Theater, and the Best came along. I was I'd say 8 or 10 years old when the Best theater came along, and they had the theaters. Once in a great while, I get to go to the theater, get to go to the show. And let's see, they had Rissers. I remember Rissers was a big 2-story building, and it was off the square.
Was the 2-story building?
Oh yes.
Was that's not where the bank was? Where Ray Peeler's offices were?
No, Risser's was where Goodyear is.
Which theater?
Goodyear. No,
Oh,
Goodyear.
Goodyear.
Risser's store was where Goodyear is, down there off of Square.
Oh, on Main Street? Like at the
I was
corner?
on Main Street.
Oh, okay. And what kind of
Behind,
business?
where Brandon's was on the corner.
Right.
Okay, they was
Yeah.
on the next block.
Yeah, I know where it is. Well, what kind of business was that? Was that a
It-
department
It
store?
was a
like?
department store. That was it.
Wow.
And what was you would put your downstairs, you'd pick out everything you want, you'd put it in a basket, and you'd put a little handle, and it'd go upstairs to be checked and wrapped.
Huh.
And then it'd come back down. The clerks was up, you went around and picked out what you wanted, put it in your basket, and then it'd go.
And then it went upstairs. What, they had some kind of a pulley system that took it?
Yeah, the pulley system pulled it
And
up.
it went upstairs, and then they told you how much you owed. Were you still downstairs?
And they would tell you then wrap it and put your chain, you put your money and send your money back up there.
That's interesting.
And Penny's had that same thing at one time, only they didn't send the money, you sent the money up,
Okay.
and they changed your money and send it back.
And send it back.
But in Restor's, you put your merchandise in a basket, like this, and send it up.
Isn't that
And it
interesting?
would come back wrapped.
Oh, I've never heard of that, but that's interesting. I'll have to talk to Tom about that too when I see him
And
today.
Restor's burnt. Well,
Is that what happened to it?
it
It burned?
burned.
Yeah. Do you
And-
remember the day the courthouse
Oh,
burned?
and yes.
Tell me about it, because I've only looked at pictures of it. Were you in town that day, or where were you?
No, see, it burnt the 29th of December.
Right.
And we had been to town that week, Christmas week, to see the lights. Papa would always bring, we'd come in the wagon,
Uh-huh.
15 miles. If the weather was good, he wanted us to see the lights. So he brought us, we came to town in the wagon and stayed. The lights went from the steeple to each corner of the square.
Oh, okay.
The steeple was, I guess it was probably 7,500 foot tall, like this tall in there.
Uh-huh.
Clock tower was up there too. So they run these lights from the top of the steeple to each corner,
Of the
Christmas
square.
lights. And the square was a lot bigger than it is now, of course. It's been cut down, And it was beautiful.
I bet it was beautiful.
And so then we went home, and on the 29th, it was a hot, windy day for December. The wind was high out of the south. I mean, really blowing that day. And courthouse got a fire up here in the steeple. These lights, the wind was so high, and birds had built a nest up there. And these lights shorted out in the steeple and caught fire, and bottom didn't have a derrick with water line high enough to reach it. And the wind was high, they couldn't get to the fire.
Oh.
And it burnt from the steeple down. And we could see it burning from where we lived, 15 miles away.
Is that right? You
Oh,
could see the flames or
We
the
see the
smoke?
Smoke. We knew something bad burnt. We didn't have telephone. We didn't know what it was until one of the neighbors had been to town and came back by that afternoon and told us late that afternoon. And I just cried and cried.
Did you? Because you thought it was such a pretty,
It's
the
such
courthouse was so,
and I just love Bonn.
yeah.
And so
And how long did it take before y'all came in? A week or two?
it's
And then you probably saw that it
there it was.
was a sad sight.
Sad sight. It all caved in and on
And they repaired it though.
there. No.
But not the same, huh?
It had big stone pillars that went to the second floor. All the way onto the second. Big, huge. Well, I tell you, they used them, what they used those stone pillars for. There was a cemetery just a block off the square on Center Street.
Okay.
And they took these pillars and made an archway, put a drive through and made an archway over that, going into that cemetery. Then they also took a bunch of them to Simpson Park. They still some of it at Simpson Park.
What's at Simpson Park? Some of the stones?
The columns that, the pillars.
That were on the,
They're at Simpson Park, some of them are.
Huh.
And they say they're going to gather up as many as they can if they rebuild it and put them back.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
And oh, it just broke my heart whenever the courthouse burned. It was so sad. And now it makes you sick to look at it now and see it then, because it was a beautiful building.
Well, they're trying to restore it.
It was similar to the Denton.
The what?
It was similar to the Denton.
Oh, was it?
Mm-hmm.
I've got a book on the courthouses. I'll look it up and see.
It was similar to the Denton.
The same style.
Mm-hmm.
Well, can you tell me how, not to change the subject, but I guess I am. How many children did you have?
2.
You have 2.
Uh-huh.
Miss
My daughter.
your daughter.
And my son got killed when he was 55. He worked for the state highway, and he was on the job in truck over in Preston.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And
to
that's
hear
17 years ago. He was 55,
that. Was he? I'm sorry to hear that.
and left her,
And what is your daughter's first name?
Virginia.
Virginia.
We
Okay.
call her Ginger. I named her Virginia Lois, and I said her name will be Ginger. I didn't want her name Virgie or Jenny.
Yeah.
And I said it'll be Ginger.
Mhm.
Ginger Rogers. I just thought she
Oh,
was very
yeah.
popular then, you know.
Yeah. Is
And
that who you picked? You got it from her?
I got it from her, and I said it will be Ginger. From the day she was born, I said it will be Ginger. But for her to have a regular name, I put Virginia,
Yeah.
and it's Virginia Lois.
Well, that's a pretty name.
And my son's name was Lester Joe Bailey, and we called him Joe Bailey.
You call him Joe Bailey? Oh.
It's supposed to be, both names were supposed to be, Joe Bailey, but they put it Joebebail, and it's supposed to be Jobeail.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, it came down on his birth certificate, full name. And
Well, how long have you been a widow? A long time, or just a
99, since 99.
Not very long then.
No.
No.
He was 86 when he died. And he had been blind for 20 years, totally blind, and he'd been helpless for about 8 years.
Is that a fact? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, what happened to his eyes? I took him everywhere when he went blind just a little quick, and I took him to the
Eye doctor, ophthalmologist.
ophthalmologist, and he said it's supposed to be poison. And I couldn't think of any, how could he be poisoned? It says the optic nerve went dead.
Optic nerve.
It was paralyzed, it went dead. So they said that's one nerve that will not rebuild itself. When it's gone, it's
Is
gone.
that right?
And so they kept saying everywhere it goes, it shows to be poison. That's all they could figure that would cause that nerve, Well, so after several years, I thought, oh, he poisoned defoliated cotton. And they used pure arsenic
Oh.
to defoliate cotton. And he defoliated cotton for about 3 years. Run a machine. Went all over West Texas defoliating cotton. And the power line on the tank broke. And when it did, it filled his face full of. And soda water was the only thing that would kill him. And he didn't have his soda water on the tractor with him. Of course, he had it at the end of the road. And he walked. He said he couldn't see. His eyes was full of. He walked, finally got to his soda water and washed his eyes out, and didn't think any more about it. It didn't seem to affect him then at all. And then several years later,
And several years later it
he
did.
did.
Well, were you living out on the farm out
There
there?
we're at.
Where I was before, where I
Yes.
interviewed your daughter.
We moved there and moved into that house on that farm in 40. We had been renting the land and working it and renting a house. And the landlord told us he'd build us a house if we'd keep, working for him. So he said, I want you to build it as cheap as you can, but I'll build you a house here. 121 wasn't even there.
It wasn't?
He wasn't there. He was out in the pasture. He
Yeah.
said, now you can pick out wherever you want to put the house
Yeah.
on this farm. Okay, there's a huge oak tree there, a huge, just about the biggest one in Fannin County, I guess. I said, I won't buy that tree, but far enough away that it won't be in danger of the tree. So, okay, we built a house, and it brought 3 rooms and 2 big porches. Now, mind you, we built 2 big porches when we could have used that room for another room, but we had to have porches back those days.
Yeah.
Anyway, he bought, well, about 2 years, he decided he wanted to sell his part. He was an heir to a 200-acre farm.
Okay.
And he had 75 acres. And he wanted to sell his 75. And he said, if y'all want to buy it, I'll sell it. Well, we bought the 75 acres. Didn't have a penny, but the bank, we had several calves. We had to save some calves, and had rented them in pasture, and out on a rented pasture. Anyway, they loaned us the money to make a down payment on the 75 acres. We paid for that, and the house was on his 75. Well, and we nearly got that paid for. Well, the other heirs had 120 acres. 190. Well, when the highway come across it, then it took out 9 acres. So it left 191 acres. So we bought the rest of the farm, which amounted to 191 acres. And how we bought it, the county had to take it over because the heirs were scattered and they couldn't get the heirs together. So the county took it over and took bids on it to sell the farm. And we put in a bid, he did, and we didn't even think about it, getting it, of course. So one day he happened to be out of town and he met Frank Spencer, the lawyer. He met Frank Spencer and he said, Jones said, when are you going to pay for that land? He said, what do you mean? He said, you was the highest bidder.
So you got it.
So here we was in the summertime, still didn't have any money,
Right.
and just about had this 75 acres paid for. Didn't yet have it paid for. He said, I'll tell you what, Mr. Spencer says, give me 2 hours and I'll be back with your money. So we had a friend in Dodge City, Mr. Tom Milton, and he went down there. He said, yes, I'll be back. I'll loan you the money to pay for it. He did take a mortgage on the farm, of course. So, I mean, we came home and we went saving pennies. Because here we bought 90 acres of land, and no money. We sold everything we could. We had several calves, and sold those.
Yeah.
And we also, when we bought the farm, we worked in the farm on the halves, which meant that they furnished all the equipment and we just worked the land. They owned all the horses and mules, so we didn't have tractors in those days. We had the horses and the mules and the plow tools, so we bought them in with when we bought the farm. So we sold off a set of the team of the mules, we sold those, had a huge barn on it, and his neighbor wanted that barn so bad, it was a huge barn. Well, we sold the barn, and they moved it off the farm. We sold a team, and everything we could do. And when we'd been married 15 years, going from welfare to, we owned 191 acres of land it paid for.
And that's something. That's wonderful.
How come us to be on welfare when we started out? We'd been married. We married in August. In November, he had a ruptured appendix and gangrene set in. Well, on Sunday it ruptured. Well, John Neville's was the only doctor that did surgery here in Bonn. You didn't go off everywhere else. You just died. You didn't have a doctor. So he was in Dallas at a convention, and he wouldn't be back till Tuesday. Well, of course, my husband got easy and everything, but still, he was dying, really. He came in on Tuesday, and gangrene had already, and he operated. He didn't give him much of a chance to live, but he was in hospital 14 days, and then it was a year before he was able to work. Well, in the meantime, the government had come out with the PWA, or People's Work Administration, And they had direct relief, which was welfare. Well, he was down and couldn't work. We didn't have any income at all. So we got on welfare. And the welfare paid for my first baby, $35. And it was a year before he could work. By that time then, he got a job on the road, working on gravel on the road from 78 to Ed Hubie. They gravelled that road. Just gravelled it, that's where. And he got to work, but they wouldn't let him do heavy work. He could carry the water bucket and water the work hands on the road. They did it by hand.
Oh my goodness.
And so he worked there until he got able to go. Then we moved back to Lamasco, and he went to work on the coffee mill lake, and he worked there for a year. All you could draw was $24 a month. We could live high on $24 a month.
Is that right? And you lived high on 24? You just had to go?
We moved to Lamasco, and he went to work on the coffee mill lake, and he worked there, and $24 a month was all you could draw. Overseer, or a boss, so they call, could draw 36. That was high, unless they had a real, But he finally worked up to $36 a month. Now that's a whole lot of money. That we was living high on the hog.
And what year was this? Let's see.
35.
1935?
Mm-hmm.
When did you marry him? What year did you?
34.
You married in 34, so 2 years later,
Mm-hmm.
you're up to $36 a month.
And he worked there about a year, and so then his father moved out to 121 where we lived out there. And he made a real good crop, and he didn't like working for WPA. We wanted to better ourselves, but didn't want to keep working. So anyway, we moved out there and picked cotton for him, and finally his daddy loaded us a team to work with, and we rented some land, and we made 10 bales of cotton first year.
Wow. That sounds good.
They made a bale to the acre. We got 10 acres, and we made 10 bales of cotton. And that was rich.
How much did cotton go for a bale in those days? Do you have any idea?
I'd say $400 or $500. And so we was doing good. And so from there, that's why I say we come from direct relief to, in 15 years, owning 191 acres, and it paid for with a new house on it. Good life. My family was churchgoers. My husband's family was churchgoers. In fact, my father-in-law gave the land for the Lamasco Baptist Church. They didn't have a Baptist church.
Uh-huh.
So he gave the land for the Lamasco Baptist Church.
Who did? Who donated it?
Ernest Jones. Ernest T.
Oh.
Jones. That was my father-in-law. And so we have connections, different. But he owned the farm there in Lamasco. He bought it in 1913, moved to Lamasco. His daddy. My husband was 6 months old when he moved into right downtown Lamasco, right in the center of Lamasco. But the farm laid back out of town,
Uh-huh.
And it went along the road there, and they needed a Baptist church. My folks was Baptist, and they didn't have a Baptist. They had a Methodist church and a Church of Christ in Lamasco, but they didn't have a Baptist church. So he gave the land to build a Baptist church between 1913 and 1920. Now, I don't know what year, but they moved there in 13, and so in 20, the church was there. So sometime between 1913 and 20, they built the Lamasco Baptist church. And
well, tell me about your husband's family, besides what you just did.
Well, Mr. Jones Lamasco had 5 grocery stores at one time.
Wow.
And he hauled freight for all the grocery stores from Bonham. And they started out with a team and wagon, and there was no gravel roads and no hard surface roads at all. And you'd have to use 4 wheels or whatever, the wagon if the weather was bad. And sometimes it'd be so loaded he'd still have to have 4 to pull the load. And he hauled freight for several years to the stores until the 29, the Depression came. And
everything fell apart.
So from then on, he farmed all the time. He had hired hands. They had hired hands, and they farmed. And Miss Jones had a live-in maid because she had 6 children and 2 hired hands. So she had to have help. So she had a live-in maid, and they did real good until the Depression came. And the boy was eat the cotton crop up. Everything just fell.
I've heard that.
Now us on the farm did real good because we raised what we eat.
Mm-hmm.
We never went hungry. We never went cold because we had plenty to eat all the time. We raised it and canned it, but there wasn't any money circulating.
What did you do? How about your clothes? Did your mother make them?
Oh yes, they made their clothes.
You made, and you sew too? Did you?
Oh yes.
You learned to sew too?
Oh yes. I can make suits or coats or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I still sew, but
Do you?
I do all my repair work. I can thread a needle.
Did you quilt? And I noticed
Oh,
this
no.
is beautiful. Did you make those?
No, I didn't make that.
They're beautiful.
My mother did some this crochet, but she didn't make that.
They're
No, I
beautiful.
couldn't crochet. I never could crochet.
Didn't
I
you?
could sew, I could embroidery, but now tatting
Uh-huh.
and crochet I couldn't do.
Uh-huh.
And it was, and like I say, and I had a wonderful mother-in-law and father-in-law. They were good people, really good people.
Yeah.
And they raised
Hi.
they
Come
raised
on in,
their
say
family
hi.
in the church.